The fluorescent lights of the New York Presbyterian maternity ward flickered softly, casting pale shadows across the room where Harper Ellington lay trembling. Her body was weak, barely recovering from the brutal delivery of her premature triplets, 3 tiny lives fighting in incubators just feet away. She should have felt joy, relief, something warm. Instead, the coldest moment of her life walked in wearing a $1,000 suit. Gavin Mercer didn't look like a new father. He looked like a CEO arriving to close a hostile acquisition. His jaw was tight, his eyes devoid of warmth, and in his hand was a slim leather folder, the kind he usually carried into boardrooms on Park Avenue, never into a hospital room where his wife had nearly died giving birth to his children. "Harper," he said, his tone clipped, not even glancing at the incubators. "We need to finalize this. Now." Harper blinked, confused. "Finalize? What?" Gavin dropped the folder onto the hospital bed, its weight landing like a stone on her chest. "Divorce." Her breath hitched. The heart monitor beeped unevenly. Surely she had heard wrong. Surely no man, no husband could be so cruel as to do this minutes after she had given him 3 children. But Gavin stood firm, expression carved from arrogance and impatience. "Vivian and I are going public at the Verona Gala on Friday. This," he tapped the documents, "needs to be done before then." Vivienne, his mistress, the woman Harper had prayed, was only a rumor. Harper's hands trembled uncontrollably. She had no strength left to fight, no family to call, no one on her side. She was alone, or so she thought. Because outside the room, watching through the small glass window, stood a man who recognized her face, Cole Westbrook. And he knew a truth Gavin never imagined. And within the next 24 hours, that truth would shake their entire world apart. Harper Ellington had always been the kind of woman people overlooked. Soft-spoken, gentle, the kind who apologized even when something wasn't her fault. She grew up in a modest corner of Ohio, raised by a grandmother who taught her kindness before ambition and resilience before pride. When her grandmother passed, Harper moved to New York with nothing but a suitcase, a nursing textbook, and a belief that if she worked hard enough, life would eventually make room for her. It didn't. Not easily. She worked as an internal coordinator at a small Brooklyn community health center, juggling schedules, answering phones, comforting patients who had no one else. Her coworkers adored her, but admiration didn't pay rent, and rent in New York hit harder than winter wind. Still, she kept going. Harper always kept going. That was the version of her Gavin Mercer met 3 years earlier, soft, grateful, impressed by every scrap of attention he gave her. To him, she had been the safe choice, the quiet choice. The woman who wouldn't challenge him, wouldn't demand too much, wouldn't threaten his upward climb into Manhattan's elite. A convenient wife? And Harper, blinded by hope and the dream of family, never saw the warning signs. Gavin's need to control everything. His sharp tone when she questioned him. The way he bought gifts instead of apologizing, designer heels she didn't need, handbags she'd never use, things meant to silence, not appreciate. Then came the pregnancy. Triplets. She remembered how Gavin's face had gone pale, then irritated, then calculating. Triplets were expensive, too expensive for a man whose obsession with image outweighed everything else. Overnight, he became distant, less patient, less present. But Harper, already attached to the tiny heartbeats inside her, did what she always did. She tried harder. She cooked more, rested less. She attended every appointment alone when Gavin canceled for meetings. She told herself, love required sacrifice. But the sacrifices were all hers. Her health declined. She fainted twice at work. The doctors warned her to slow down, to avoid stress. Gavin barely reacted. "Other women do it," he'd said. "Stop being dramatic." Still, she endured. For the babies. For the hope of a family she'd never had. But lying in that hospital bed, divorced moments after giving birth, Harper realized something with a clarity that felt like breaking glass. She had given everything. Gavin had given nothing. What she didn't know, not yet, was that the world had been holding something back from her too. Something massive. Something that would take her life in a direction no one, not even Gavin, could predict. And that revelation was already on its way to her hospital room. Manhattan had a way of making people feel small, and Harper Ellington knew that feeling intimately. The city glittered, but only for those who could afford to stand close enough to the lights. For everyone else, like Harper, it was a constant negotiation between subway fares and grocery budgets, between exhaustion and survival. She lived in a small walk-up in Brooklyn she could barely climb during her pregnancy, a place with creaky wooden floors and a view of a brick wall instead of the skyline. Meanwhile, Gavin Mercer operated in a different universe entirely. His penthouse on the Upper East Side was a monument to newly acquired wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the East River, marble counters imported from Italy, a wine fridge stocked with bottles worth more than Harper's monthly salary. It wasn't just a home, it was a stage. Every inch of it curated, polished, arranged to impress investors and socialites who visited for networking dinners and fundraising soirees. Harper never felt like she belonged there. Her sweaters looked too simple against the expensive decor. Her voice sounded too quiet in rooms designed for power. Even the house staff, hired by Gavin, looked at her with a mix of pity and confusion, as if wondering why the CEO's wife was so ordinary. When she became pregnant, things grew more complicated. Gavin didn't want the pregnancy affecting his reputation. He told people Harper was taking time off, a phrase that made her sound like a burden rather than a partner. She spent most nights alone in the penthouse, listening to the hum of the city through glass she couldn't see through without feeling dizzy. While Gavin attended black tie events at the Plaza Hotel, she watched reruns on a second-hand TV. While he networked with executives on Park Avenue, she clutched her phone, hoping he'd at least ask about the babies. Her world was shrinking while his expanded. Then the medical complications began, ones she couldn't hide. Her doctor warned her she needed rest, support, stability. Gavin waved it off, insisting she was too emotional. To him, everything was an inconvenience. Her swollen feet, her shortness of breath, her fainting spells. Eventually, Harper stopped telling him how scared she was. She saved those confessions for the quiet moments, touching her belly and whispering apologies to the children she hoped would forgive her for not being stronger. Still, she endured. And in that endurance, life was changing in another corner of Manhattan, inside the towering glass headquarters of Westbrook Holdings, where Cole Westbrook reviewed a document with a signature he recognized. A signature that would lead him straight to Harper's hospital room. Vivian Clark entered Gavin's life the same way lightning hits a dry forest, fast, bright, and devastating. She was the kind of woman Manhattan noticed instantly. Sharp cheekbones, flawless blowout hair, and eyes that glittered like polished steel. CEO of Verona Beauty, a rising star. In every room she walked into, people adjusted their posture. Harper remembered the first time she heard Vivian's name. It slipped out casually during one of Gavin's late-night phone calls, the kind he took while pacing their penthouse with a glass of bourbon in hand. "Vivian wants the proposal revised," he'd muttered. Harper hadn't thought much of it. Back then, she still believed Gavin's world and hers overlapped in honest ways. She didn't know that Vivienne wasn't just a business partner. She was a woman who saw Gavin not as a husband, but as a tool. A ladder rung. A man she could shape, manipulate, and control with a smile. Their affair began slowly, invisibly, hidden beneath work dinners, urgent meetings, and weekend strategy retreats. Gavin didn't even bother hiding the signs. New cologne, pricey tailored suits, the distinct scent of Vivian's rose and cedar perfume on his shirts. He'd leave home, claiming stress, then return, looking oddly victorious. Harper, already overwhelmed with her high-risk pregnancy, missed the clues at first. Or maybe she didn't want to see them. She kept telling herself it was temporary. Men under pressure acted strange. Gavin would come around, but Vivienne had other plans. Behind the scenes, she whispered ideas into Gavin's ear, ideas about status, optics, and how Harper, sweet but ordinary, didn't fit the image of a CEO's wife. She fed his ego, complimented his ambition, made him feel like a king. And kings, in Gavin's mind, deserved a queen who matched the crown. Vivienne positioned herself perfectly. She attended events on Gavin's arm, as a colleague. She got photographed with him at charity functions. She even dared to send Harper a Verona Beauty PR package with a handwritten note that said, "You deserve to treat yourself." Harper didn't understand the cruelty behind it. Not yet. Meanwhile, Vivienne's ambition sharpened. She wanted to debut their relationship at the Verona Gala, a high-profile event at the Plaza where the most influential investors and media outlets gathered. But Gavin needed to be single first. "You can't bring a wife who looks tired and fragile," Vivian hissed one night. "Sign the papers before the gala." So he did. In a hospital room, minutes after Harper risked her life delivering his children. And while Harper lay shattered, Vivian stood in Gavin's penthouse that same night wearing his shirt, sipping expensive champagne, planning their grand entrance at the gala. What none of them knew was that something far bigger than all their schemes had already been set in motion. And Vivienne was about to discover she had picked the wrong woman to underestimate. The smell of antiseptic and warm blankets hung heavily in the maternity ward as Harper struggled to stay awake. Her body felt foreign, hollowed out, trembling from the blood loss and the violent exhaustion of delivering 3 fragile lives into the world. Machines beeped softly beside her. The nurses whispered with gentle urgency. Harper heard only pieces of their words: oxygen levels, incubators, critical monitoring. She tried to turn her head toward the incubators, wanting just a glimpse of her babies, but her vision blurred, her limbs refusing to cooperate. Then the door swung open. Gavin walked in, polished and composed, as if he were stepping into a conference room instead of the room where his wife had nearly died. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't ask about the babies. His first words were clinical, cold, rehearsed. "We need to sign the papers, Harper." She stared at him, still unsure if she was dreaming. "Papers? Gavin, just our babies. This is not the time to get emotional," he snapped, flipping open the leather folder on her bedside table. "Vivian and I agreed it would be cleaner to end this now. Before the gala, that monstrous, glittering event at the plaza where Gavin planned to parade his new life." Harper's voice cracked. "You're divorcing me while I'm still hooked up to machines?" Gavin's eyes flicked toward the incubators only for a second before returning to the paperwork. "I can't live like this anymore. You're draining me, Harper. And I'm tired of pretending we're a good match." End quote. A nurse standing near the monitors froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Another nurse quietly stepped back, lips pressed tightly, trying not to intervene. "You can't do this," Harper whispered, her breath catching painfully. "At least wait until I can stand." He pushed a pen into her weak hand. "No, we're doing this now. I need to be free before Friday." Her fingers shook violently around the pen, her pulse spiking on the monitor. Gavin sighed loudly, annoyed. "You'll get a small settlement," he added, as if offering charity. "Something manageable. And I guess you can keep whatever you have in that tiny Brooklyn apartment." The humiliation hit her like a physical blow. Tiny, manageable, charity, words that sliced through an already shattered heart. And still, Harper signed, because she had no strength left to fight. When Gavin left the room without a backward glance, a nurse rushed to her side. "Honey, you're not alone. Someone's been waiting outside, watching out for you." Harper blinked, confused. "Who?" The nurse hesitated, then whispered, "A man named Cole Westbrook, and he says he's family." The smell of antiseptic and warm blankets hung heavily in the maternity ward as Harper struggled to stay awake. Her body felt foreign, hollowed out, trembling from the blood loss and the violent exhaustion of delivering 3 fragile lives into the world. Machines beeped softly beside her. The nurses whispered with gentle urgency. Harper heard only pieces of their words: oxygen levels, incubators, critical monitoring. She tried to turn her head toward the incubators, wanting just a glimpse of her babies. But her vision blurred, her limbs refusing to cooperate. Then the door swung open. Gavin walked in, polished and composed, as if he were stepping into a conference room instead of the room where his wife had nearly died. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't ask about the babies. His first words were clinical, cold, rehearsed. "We need to sign the papers, Harper." She stared at him, still unsure if she was dreaming. "Papers? Gavin, just our babies." "This is not the time to get emotional," he snapped, flipping open the leather folder on her bedside table. "Vivienne and I agreed it would be cleaner to end this now. Before the gala, that monstrous, glittering event at the plaza where Gavin planned to parade his new life." Harper's voice cracked. "You're divorcing me while I'm still hooked up to machines?" Gavin's eyes flicked toward the incubators only for a second before returning to the paperwork. "I can't live like this anymore. You're draining me, Harper. And I'm tired of pretending we're a good match." A nurse standing near the monitors froze, her eyes widening in disbelief. Another nurse quietly stepped back, lips pressed tightly, trying not to intervene. "You can't do this," Harper whispered, her breath catching painfully. "At least wait until I can stand." He pushed a pen into her weak hand. "No, we're doing this now. I need to be free before Friday." Her fingers shook violently around the pen, her pulse spiking on the monitor. Gavin sighed loudly, annoyed. "You'll get a small settlement," he added, as if offering charity. "Something manageable. And I guess you can keep whatever you have in that tiny Brooklyn apartment." Asave. As kommen baut of tua. The humiliation hit her like a physical blow. Tiny, manageable, charity. Words that sliced through an already shattered heart. And still, Harper signed. Because she had no strength left to fight. When Gavin left the room without a backward glance, a nurse rushed to her side. "Honey, you're not alone. Someone's been waiting outside, watching out for you." Harper blinked, confused. "Who?" The nurse hesitated, then whispered. "A man named Cole Westbrook, and he says he's family to Dantonida." The room felt colder after Gavin left, as if he'd taken the last bit of warmth with him. Harper lay motionless, staring at the closed door, the divorce papers still trembling in her weak hand. The pen marks were uneven, her signature barely legible, a wounded scrawl of surrender. She couldn't breathe, she couldn't think. Her chest tightened until each breath felt like glass cutting her from the inside. A nurse gently adjusted Harper's pillow, but she barely felt it. Her mind replayed Gavin's words like a cruel echo. "You're draining me. I need to be free before Friday." Free from her, from their children, from the life he vowed to build. The heart monitor beeped faster. Harper tried to sit up, but the pain shot through her abdomen, and darkness clouded her vision. She clutched the bed rails, desperate, dizzy, fighting the flood of panic threatening to drown her. Tears filled her eyes, hot, heavy, unstoppable. She'd cried in private during her pregnancy, hiding her fear from Gavin. But this was different. This was a breaking. She whispered to herself, voice hoarse. "I did everything for him. Everything." A sob tore from her throat. She covered her face, ashamed of the sound, ashamed of her weakness. How had she become this version of herself, so afraid, so alone, so disposable? Through her tears, she looked toward the incubators. 3 tiny bodies, so small they barely filled the blankets wrapped around them. They were fighting too. They were here because she refused to give up on them. They were her only anchor in a storm she never saw coming. Harper reached out a trembling hand toward them, even though she couldn't stand. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Her tears blurred the machine's lights into soft, glowing stars. A nurse touched her shoulder gently. "Sweetheart, you need to rest." But rest felt impossible. How could she rest when her life had just collapsed on top of her? When the man she built her future around had torn it apart in minutes? When she had no money, no family, no home, and 3 premature babies who depended entirely on her? The nurse stepped aside as her doctor entered the room, concern tightening his expression. "Harper, your vitals are unstable. You're under extreme stress. If you don't calm down, we may need to move you to intensive monitoring." Harper didn't respond. The world around her was shrinking, suffocating, collapsing inward. Then, a soft knock on the door. Not urgent, not loud, just steady. The doctor turned. "Who are you?" A calm, commanding voice replied, "Cole Westbrook, and I'm here for Harper." Harper's breath caught, because she had no idea why a billionaire would know her name. Cole Westbrook didn't enter the room like a stranger. He entered like someone who had been looking for Harper Ellington his entire life. Tall, composed, wearing a charcoal suit that looked like it belonged in a Park Avenue boardroom, he carried an authority that made even the doctor step back. "Harper," he said gently, his voice low, warm. "My name is Cole. I've been trying to reach you for days." Harper blinked, confused. I don't know you." "No," he agreed softly. "But you will. And I need you to hear something very important." "Thank you." Her pulse raced, her throat tightened. Why was a billionaire? Yes, she recognized him now from magazine covers standing at her hospital bed. Cole pulled a leather envelope from inside his coat. "I'm here on behalf of your grandmother, Eleanor Ellington." Harper's breath stilled. "My grandmother died when I was 16. "I know," Cole said. "But her estate." Didn't. The doctor cleared his throat. Sir, she's in a very fragile state. Cole raised a hand. And that's exactly why she deserves the truth. He placed the envelope on the bedside table, right where Gavin had set the divorce papers hours earlier. But this folder felt heavier, weighted with something powerful, life-changing. Harper, Cole said softly, your grandmother wasn't just a retired librarian. She was the founder of Ellington Westbrook Holdings with my father. She owned half the company. Harper frowned, her mind foggy. That can't be right. We were poor. In fact, because she chose to live that way, Cole explained. She walked away from the corporate world when your mother was born. She wanted a simple life, but legally, she never relinquished her shares. Harper's heart pounded. She glanced at the envelope, then at Cole. What does that mean? It means, Cole continued, that those shares were placed in a generational trust, a trust that activates under one condition. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. When the next Ellington heir is born. Harper stared at him, stunned, silent. With the birth of your triplets, Cole said, voice warm with certainty, you have inherited full controlling interest in Ellington Westbrook Holdings. You are now the primary heir to an $18 billion empire. The room froze. Even the machines seemed to quiet. Harper shook her head. No, this must be a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm broke. My husband just left me. Cole's expression softened. You're not nobody. You're the rightful owner of half my company. And I promised your grandmother that when the time came, I would protect you. Harper's tears returned, but this time, not from despair. From disbelief, from possibility, from a door opening where another had just slammed shut. Cole stepped closer. Harper, you're not alone anymore. And Gavin Mercer has no idea who he just walked away from. Harper's breath hitched as the truth settled over her. And miles away, Gavin was about to make a mistake that would seal his fate forever. Cole Westbrook didn't enter the room like a stranger. He entered like someone who had been looking for Harper Ellington his entire life. Tall, composed, wearing a charcoal suit that looked like it belonged in a Park Avenue boardroom, he carried an authority that made even the doctor step back. Harper, he said gently, his voice low, warm. My name is Cole. I've been trying to reach you for days. It's not us. Harper blinked, confused. I don't know you. No, he agreed softly, but you will. And I need you to hear something very important. Her pulse raced, her throat tightened. Why was a billionaire? Yes, she recognized him now from magazine covers standing at her hospital bed. Cole pulled a leather envelope from inside his coat. I'm here on behalf of your grandmother, Eleanor Ellington. Harper's breath stilled. My grandmother died when I was 16. I know, Cole said, but her estate didn't. The doctor cleared his throat. Sir, she's in a very fragile state. Cole raised a hand. And that's exactly why she deserves the truth. He placed the envelope on the bedside table, right where Gavin had set the divorce papers hours earlier. But this folder felt heavier, weighted with something powerful, life-changing. Harper, Cole said softly, your grandmother wasn't just a retired librarian. She was the founder of Ellington Westbrook Holdings with my father. She owned half the company. Harper frowned, her mind foggy. That can't be right. We were poor. Because she chose to live that way, Cole explained. She walked away from the corporate world when your mother was born. She wanted a simple life. But legally, she never relinquished her shares. Harper's heart pounded. She glanced at the envelope, then at Cole. What does that mean? It means, Cole continued, that those shares were placed in a generational trust. A trust that activates under one condition. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. When the next Ellington heir is born. Harper stared at him, stunned, silent. With the birth of your triplets, Cole said, voice warm with certainty, you have inherited full controlling interest in Ellington Westbrook Holdings. You are now the primary heir to an $18 billion empire. The room froze. Even the machines seemed to quiet. Harper shook her head. No, this must be a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm broke. My husband just left me. Cole's expression softened. You're not nobody. You're the rightful owner of half my company. And I promised your grandmother that when the time came, I would protect you. Harper's tears returned, but this time, not from despair. From disbelief, from possibility, from a door opening where another had just slammed shut. Cole stepped closer. Harper, you're not alone anymore. And Gavin Mercer has no idea who he just walked away from. Harper's breath hitched as the truth settled over her. And miles away, Gavin was about to make a mistake that would seal his fate forever. For the first time in months, Harper awoke without fear tightening her chest. The hospital room was quiet, washed in soft morning light. Cole Westbrook had stayed until she fell asleep, speaking quietly with the nurses, arranging specialist teams for her babies, ensuring she received the best care Manhattan could offer. She had never experienced this level of protection, certainly not from Gavin. When Harper was stable enough for discharge, Cole arranged her transfer not to her old walk-up apartment in Brooklyn, but to a private suite at the Plaza Hotel. Harper protested at first, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't belong somewhere like that." Cole gave her a steady look. "You belong anywhere. Safety and dignity exist, and after what you've endured, you deserve both." The Plaza suite was unlike anything she'd ever seen. High ceilings, pale gold curtains, fresh white roses placed delicately on marble countertops. A crib had already been installed for when her babies were strong enough to leave the NICU. A warm tray of breakfast oatmeal, with berries, toasted brioche, and fresh orange juice waited on a silver cart. Harper stood by the window, gazing down at Central Park, dusted with winter frost. She wrapped her arms around herself, unsure if she was allowed to breathe here, let alone exist. Cole watched her quietly. "Your grandmother wanted you to have a life without fear. I'm just fulfilling her wish." She bit her lip. "How could she have left all this to me? I didn't do anything to earn it." "Thanks for watching." "You survived," Cole replied softly, "and you loved her. That mattered to her more than you know." Harper looked down at her trembling hands. Hours earlier, she was a discarded wife with nothing. Now she was heir to a global empire. The contrast made her dizzy. But along with the disbelief, something else stirred inside her, something faint but unmistakable. Strength. That afternoon, Cole brought in a financial advisor, a legal representative, and a personal assistant to help Harper understand what she now controlled. They spoke respectfully, slowly, explaining every detail, not like Gavin, who always made her feel ignorant. These people treated her as someone capable, someone important. Harper absorbed everything she could, even though her body still felt fragile. Every signed document, every clarified detail slowly rebuilt pieces of her. Piece by piece, she was returning. But healing came with new shadows. Because while Harper settled into her new reality, Gavin was pacing inside his penthouse, furious that she hadn't answered any of his calls. He needed her signature for something he refused to reveal. Something urgent, something dangerous. And he was about to discover exactly where she had disappeared to. And when he did, the consequences would be catastrophic. Gavin Mercer had never been the worrying type. He was too self-assured, too convinced the world bent around his desires. But by the third day of Harper's silence, a knot of unease twisted inside him. At first, he chalked it up to postpartum drama, then to exhaustion, then to her being overly sensitive, as he liked to label anything that didn't serve him. But by the fourth day, worry turned into irritation, and irritation began to morph into fear. He needed her signature. Not on the divorce papers, those were already filed. He needed her signature on a financial document he'd prepared months earlier. A document he thought he'd trick her into signing when she was too overwhelmed to question it. A document guaranteeing him access to certain assets he assumed she might inherit someday. He had no idea those assets were now in motion. When Harper didn't return home after discharge, Gavin called the hospital. They told him she'd been transferred to a private location. "Arranged by Mr. Westbrook," the nurse had said. Gavin froze. "Westbrook, as in Cole Westbrook?" "Yes, sir." The line went dead in his hand. Why would a billionaire, one of the most powerful men in New York, be involved with Harper? Gavin tried convincing himself it was a misunderstanding. A coincidence. Maybe they shared a doctor. Maybe the nurse was mistaken. But the more he spiraled, the more memories surfaced, subtle comments Harper made about her grandmother. The old family photos she kept tucked away, the odd letters she once received but never opened because she thought it was a scam. Gavin's stomach tightened. No, impossible. Harper didn't come from money. She didn't even have a credit card when he met her. Still, the timing was too strange. He tried calling her again, straight to voicemail. He tried texting, no response. He slammed his phone onto the marble countertop so hard the screen cracked. "Vivienne, lounging on his Italian leather couch in one of his shirts, rolled her eyes. "You're obsessing. She's probably hiding in that sad little Brooklyn apartment." "She's not there," Gavin snapped. "Someone moved her." "Moved her?" Vivienne smirked. "She's not a chess piece, Gavin." But he wasn't listening anymore. He was pacing, sweating, panicked. And then came the final blow. His assistant rushed in with a folder. "Sir, investors are demanding a meeting. They want clarification about rumors involving Ellington Westbrook Holdings acquiring new leadership." Gavin's heart stopped. Harper's maiden name was Ellington. He grabbed the folder, scanning the page until his vision blurred. "This can't be real," he whispered. But it was. Vivienne leaned forward, irritation turning into alarm. "Gavin, what is it? What's going on?" Gavin's voice cracked, barely audible. "She's not hiding." He looked toward the skyline, dread swallowing him whole. "She's rising." The mornings at the plaza started to feel different for Harper. For the first time in years, she wasn't waking up to Gavin's clipped tone or the quiet dread that had lived in her chest throughout their marriage. Instead, she woke to soft light filtering through gold curtains, the distant hum of Fifth Avenue below, and the knowledge that her babies were growing stronger each day in the NICU. Cole visited her daily, not hovering, not overwhelming, just present. He brought updates from the NICU, warm drinks from the hotel cafe, and printed guides on everything she needed to know about Ellington Westbrook Holdings. Harper would sit at the small mahogany desk, glasses perched low on her nose, absorbing every word. "Take your time," Cole told her. "This world is new, but it's yours." The thought terrified her. But it also stirred something brave. Each afternoon, a team arrived, a financial advisor, a trust attorney, a soft-spoken assistant named Miriam who organized her schedule. They never rushed Harper, never made her feel foolish, even when her hands trembled while signing something important. She spent hours learning the basics: assets, voting rights, board structures, minority stakes, philanthropic divisions. It felt like studying another language. But slowly, she began to understand. And with each realization, a piece of her old self fell away, the timid version Gavin groomed into silence. One evening, as the city glowed beneath the winter dusk, Harper sat with a thick binder open before her. Numbers, charts. A map of the empire her grandmother once built. She brushed her fingers across Eleanor Ellington's signature. Her grandmother had believed in her. Someone had believed in her long before she believed in herself. A tear slipped down her cheek, but it wasn't from pain. It was from recognition, from the realization that she wasn't small, not anymore. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and practiced her voice steady, confident, even when her heart raced. If she was going to protect her children, she had to become the woman the world never expected her to be. Just as Harper finally closed the binder, Miriam hurried into the suite, face pale, clutching a tablet in her hands. "Harper, I thought you should see this." Harper took the tablet. On the screen was a breaking news headline. Mercer Dynamics CEO, Gavin Mercer faces internal investigation. Below it was a photo of Gavin leaving his office, visibly shaken, reporters swarming around him. Harper's breath caught. What happened? Miriam swallowed hard. "It's not just about the company," she whispered. "There are allegations, big ones, and it looks like they might involve you." Harper felt the ground tilt, because if Gavin dragged her name into this, everything she had just rebuilt could shatter again. Gavin Mercer prided himself on control. Control of his image, his company, his narrative. But the moment news of an internal investigation hit the media, control slipped through his fingers like sand. Mercer Dynamics' pristine glass tower on Park Avenue buzzed with panic, secretaries whispering behind cubicle walls, board members flooding his inbox, investors demanding answers. In the privacy of his office, Gavin slammed the door shut and paced like a trapped animal. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, an image he would never allow the public to see. Not ever. "How the hell did this leak?" he barked into the phone. His CFO stuttered on the other end. "We're not sure, sir." But the auditors flagged irregularities, transactions routed through a joint account, one that had Harper's name on it. Gavin's blood went cold. The account wasn't supposed to be traced. He'd used it over the past 3 years to quietly move funds between subsidiaries, reallocating resources, as he called it. He told himself it wasn't illegal, just creative. Strategic. necessary to maintain Mercer Dynamics' rapid growth. But now Harper's name was attached to everything, and she wasn't answering his calls. Vivian stormed into his office, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Gavin, why am I seeing your company trending for fraud? And why is your ex-wife involved in this mess?" "She isn't involved," he snapped. "She doesn't know anything." Vivian crossed her arms. "Well, someone seems to think she does." Gavin rubbed his temples. The timing was too precise, too dangerous, as if someone had pulled the thread at exactly the moment his life began unraveling. Then his assistant rushed in, pale and shaking. "Sir, the board wants an emergency meeting. Today, and one of these." Gavin slammed his fist onto the desk. "I built this company. They don't get to question me." Vivian scoffed. "Investors don't care about loyalty. They care about survival, and you look like a sinking ship." He shot her a glare, but she was right. The cracks were widening, fast. His phone buzzed. A new headline flashed across the screen. "Ellington Westbrook heir emerges. Control shift expected." Gavin's breath stopped. Ellington. No, it couldn't be. But then he saw the photo accompanying the article. A blurry shot of Harper entering the Plaza Hotel, assisted by a security team wearing Westbrook Holdings badges. Vivian leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Is that Harper at the Plaza with Westbrook security?" Gavin felt sick. He'd spent years dismissing her as insignificant, powerless, beneath him. And now she was aligning herself with one of the wealthiest families in the country. "Gavin," Vivian whispered, stepping back as the color drained from his face. "What did you get us into?" A cold realization settled over him. Harper wasn't running from him. She was rising, and the next move she made could destroy everything he'd ever built. Gavin Mercer prided himself on control. Control of his image, his company, his narrative. But the moment news of an internal investigation hit the media, control slipped through his fingers like sand. Mercer Dynamics' pristine glass tower on Park Avenue buzzed with panicked secretaries whispering behind cubicle walls, board members flooding his inbox, investors demanding answers. In the privacy of his office, Gavin slammed the door shut and paced like a trapped animal. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, an image he would never allow the public to see, not ever. "How the hell did this leak?" he barked into the phone. His CFO stuttered on the other end. "We're not sure, sir. But the auditors flagged irregularities, transactions routed through a joint account, one that had Harper's name on it." Gavin's blood went cold. The account wasn't supposed to be traced. He'd used it over the past 3 years to quietly move funds between subsidiaries, reallocating resources, as he called it. He told himself it wasn't illegal, just creative, strategic, necessary to maintain Mercer Dynamics' rapid growth. But now Harper's name was attached to everything, and she wasn't answering his calls. Vivian stormed into his office, heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Gavin, why am I seeing your company trending for fraud? And why is your ex-wife involved in this mess?" "She isn't involved," he snapped. "She doesn't know anything." Vivian crossed her arms. "Well, someone seems to think she does." Gavin rubbed his temples. The timing was too precise, too dangerous, as if someone had pulled the thread at exactly the moment his life began unraveling. Then his assistant rushed in, pale and shaking. "Sir, the board wants an emergency meeting. Today." Gavin slammed his fist onto the desk. "I built this company. They don't get to question me." Vivian scoffed. "Investors don't care about loyalty. They care about survival, and you look like a sinking ship." He shot her a glare, but she was right. The cracks were widening, fast. His phone buzzed. A new headline flashed across the screen. "Ellington Westbrook heir emerges, control shift expected." Gavin's breath stopped. Ellington. No, it couldn't be. But then he saw the photo accompanying the article. A blurry shot of Harper entering the Plaza Hotel, assisted by a security team wearing Westbrook Holdings badges. Vivian leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Is that Harper at the Plaza with Westbrook security?" Gavin felt sick. He'd spent years dismissing her as insignificant, powerless, beneath him. And now she was aligning herself with one of the wealthiest families in the country. "Gavin," Vivian whispered, stepping back as the color drained from his face. "What did you get us into?" A cold realization settled over him. Harper wasn't running from him. She was rising, and the next move she made could destroy everything he'd ever built. The snow outside Park Avenue was melting into thin silver streams when the black SUV pulled up to the towering glass headquarters of Mercer Dynamics. Harper stared at the building through the tinted window, her pulse thudding in her ears. She hadn't set foot near Gavin's world since the day he abandoned her in the hospital. This place held memories, sharp ones, cold ones. But today wasn't about memories. Today was about power. Cole sat beside her, calm and composed. "You don't have to speak," he said softly. "Just be present. Your presence alone will shift the room." Harper swallowed hard. "Will he be there?" "He has no idea you're coming," Cole replied. "And after the investigation leaks, the board is desperate. They requested Ellington Westbrook Holdings representative, personally." He paused. "That representative is you." The SUV door opened. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of winter and asphalt. Harper stepped out, adjusting the tailored coat. Cole's assistant had brought her soft cream wool with gold buttons that made her feel steadier than she expected. Inside, the lobby buzzed. Executives whispered. Assistants rushed past with stacks of documents. Reporters hovered outside the glass doors, hungry for a headline. But the moment Harper entered, the noise shifted, eyes widening, whispers rising like static electricity. "That's her." "Is that the ex-wife?" "No, that's the Westbrook heir." "Why is she here?" The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt both agonizingly long and impossibly short. When the doors opened, the boardroom loomed ahead, glass walls, polished mahogany table, and 10 of the most powerful investors in the company waiting with grim expressions. And at the center of it all sat Gavin, looking shredded at the edges, hair unkempt, tie crooked, eyes bloodshot. Vivienne stood beside him, arms crossed tightly, her confidence cracked. When Gavin saw Harper at the doorway, his entire body froze. The pen slipped from his fingers. "Harper?" he breathed, disbelieving. What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. She walked to the seat Cole pulled out for her at the head of the table, a place no one ever expected her to occupy. The room erupted. "Ellington Westbrook has a majority vote. Why wasn't I informed? Is she taking over the inquiry?" Harper held her ground, heartbeat pounding, but her face steady. The chairman finally cleared his throat. "Miss Ellington, as the new controlling interest of Ellington Westbrook Holdings, you have the right to sit in on this review." Gavin's voice cracked. "This is insane. She doesn't know anything about my company." Harper slowly looked at him, her hands folded calmly on the table. "No," she said softly, "but I know enough about you." A ripple went through the room. Cole leaned back slightly, watching Gavin pale. And then the CFO entered, dropping a stack of documents onto the table. "We ran the numbers again," he announced. "The misuse of funds points to one primary architect." He turned toward Gavin. "You." Gavin's breath fractured, and Harper was about to say the first sentence that would end his career forever. The boardroom erupted into whispers, but Harper barely heard them. Her pulse was steady now. The fear that once lived in her had evaporated. Watching Gavin crumble under the weight of his own deeds brought a strange mixture of sorrow and clarity. Sorrow for the woman she once was, clarity for the woman she was becoming. When the CFO finished presenting evidence, the chairman dismissed the board for a brief recess. As the executives filed out, tension thickened the air. Vivienne shot Harper a venomous glance before storming after them, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Soon, only Gavin, Harper, and Cole remained. Gavin stood abruptly, his chair scraping. "You blindsided me," he hissed, voice trembling. "How long have you been planning this? How long have you been pretending to be weak?" Harper looked at him with a calmness that unnerved him further. "I never pretended. I was weak. You made sure of it." That's not," Gavin began, but Cole stepped forward. "Don't rewrite history," Cole said coldly. "You left her hours after she gave birth. You stole money using her name. You weaponized her vulnerability." Gavin's face twisted. "Stay out of this. This is between me and my wife." "Ex-wife," Harper corrected softly. He froze. It was the softness that hurt him. The softness he once mistook for dependence. Now it was strength. "Harper," he said, voice cracking. "Look, I made mistakes, everyone does. But I can fix this. We can fix this. For the babies." Harper blinked slowly. "You didn't even look at them." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You walked into that hospital room with divorce papers, she continued, each word controlled. You didn't ask if I was okay. You didn't ask if they were breathing. You cared about a gala, about Vivienne, about your image. Gavin's eyes reddened. I was under pressure. You thought I would always be beneath you, Harper said gently. You never imagined I'd have something you wanted. Silence. Gavin's mask shattered. Harper, please, you can't let them do this to me. I built Mercer Dynamics. I can't lose everything. Cole folded his arms. You did this to yourself. Gavin suddenly grabbed Harper's hand, not lovingly, but desperately. Harper, listen to me. If you vote with them, I'm done. I have nothing left. They were idiots. Harper gently pulled her hand back. You had everything, she whispered. And you threw it away. Gavin stumbled back as if struck. Before he could speak again, the door creaked open. Vivienne stood there, face drained, eyes wide with panic. Gavin, she breathed, voice trembling. There's a reporter downstairs, and he says he has proof. Proof about the offshore accounts. Gavin's face went white. Harper and Cole exchanged a look. Because the real collapse was only just beginning, and this time there would be no saving Gavin Mercer. The chaos inside Mercer Dynamics had left Harper emotionally drained, but when she returned to the plaza that evening, the city outside the grand windows looked softer. Snowflakes drifted lazily over Central Park, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she was collapsing under the weight of her life. Cole met her at the suite door, a quiet concern etched across his face. Rough day? She let out a shaky breath. More than that, he nodded, gesturing toward a small table by the window. A warm Starbucks cup sat there, her favorite caramel latte, the one she always bought on rare mornings she could afford a treat. She stared at it, stunned, he remembered. I thought you could use something familiar, he said gently. Harper sat, fingers curling around the cup. The warmth seeped into her palms, grounding her in a way she didn't know she needed. Cole joined her, keeping a respectful distance. He wasn't Gavin, he didn't invade space or demand attention. He offered steadiness, presence, quiet strength, something Harper had never had. I saw your face in that boardroom, Cole said. You stood your ground. Harper laughed softly, though it sounded more like disbelief. I felt like I was going to pass out. But you didn't, Cole replied. You stayed. That's courage, Harper. It had been a long time since anyone called her courageous. She looked at him, noticing things she hadn't before: the faint tiredness in his eyes, the careful patience in his tone, the way he never forced conversation. Cole wasn't just protecting her because of a promise. There was something deeper, something unspoken. Harper's voice softened. Thank you for everything. My babies, the trust, the support. I don't know what I would have done without you. Thanks for watching. Cole exhaled slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. You don't owe me anything. Your grandmother trusted me. And now, I trust you too. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with something warm, unfamiliar. She looked away, afraid he might see her expression too clearly. I don't know what comes next, she murmured. Cole leaned forward slightly. Whatever comes, you won't face it alone. Not anymore. His words settled over her like a blanket, comforting, safe, real. For the first time since the nightmare began, Harper felt the fragile beginnings of hope. Not the fragile fantasy she once clung to with Gavin, but something steadier. Something she could build a life on. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her heart stuttered. A new headline. Vivienne Clark, under investigation. Verona beauty stock plummets. Cole read her expression instantly. What happened? Harper swallowed hard. Vivienne's falling, and she's dragging Gavin down with her. Vivienne Clark had built her entire empire on beauty, sleek branding, flawless public image, and manipulation coated in glossy charm. But beauty cracked fast under pressure, and the news of an investigation into Verona beauty hit her like a slap across the face. Harper silently reread the headline while Cole leaned closer, scanning each line with cold precision. Misleading product claims, falsified safety reports, stock dropping 13%, Cole murmured. Vivienne's in trouble. Harper felt a strange sensation, something between justice and disbelief. Vivienne had strutted into her life like a storm, ripping apart her marriage without blinking. Seeing the cracks form in her perfect world didn't bring joy, exactly, but it brought clarity. "She won't go down quietly," Harper whispered. Cole nodded. "No. People like her don't. They burn everything around them before they fall." And he was right, because hours later, Harper's name erupted across social media. Number: Harper Ellington. Mercer affair. Triplet scandal. Harper gasped as the notifications flooded her phone. Slanderous posts spread like wildfire, images of her looking pale after childbirth twisted into proof she had been cheating. Anonymous posts claiming Gavin wasn't the father, articles insinuating she faked her high-risk pregnancy for attention. "That's Vivian," Cole said, voice steady but ice-cold. "This is the kind of smear campaign she runs when cornered." Harper's throat tightened. These lies weren't just humiliating, they were dangerous. Her position at Ellington Westbrook Holdings required stability. Scandal could shake investor confidence. And worst of all, her babies, her tiny, fragile babies, could be dragged into the mess. "I can't do this," Harper whispered, shaking. "I can't fight all of them." "His wage." Cole lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Yes, you can. And you won't fight alone." Minutes later, he was on the phone with the Westbrook legal division, giving orders that carried the weight of an empire. A PR team was mobilized. Lawyers drafted formal statements. Investigators traced the source of the smear campaign. All roads led to Vivian's private PR contractor. Harper watched the chaos unfold in awe. Cole wasn't loud. He wasn't theatrical. He was strategic, moving through the battlefield with quiet power, defending her with the precision of a man who refused to let her break again. "Vivian just made the biggest mistake of her life," Cole muttered as he ended another call. "She started a war against a woman protected by an $18 billion dynasty." Harper swallowed. "What happens now?" Cole exhaled slowly, eyes darkening. "Now," he said, "we respond. To SO." Before Harper could ask how, her phone buzzed again, this time with a message request from an unknown number. A single sentence appeared. "You should have stayed in your lane, Harper." Harper's heart dropped. Because the message wasn't from Vivian, it was from Gavin. Harper stared at the message from Gavin, her fingers trembling. "You should have stayed in your lane, Harper." The cruelty of it stung, but what unsettled her more was the desperation hidden between the words. Gavin wasn't mocking her, he was warning her. Or threatening her. Maybe both. Cole stepped closer. "What did he say?" Harper handed him the phone. His jaw tightened. "He's scared. Men like Gavin only lash out when they know they're cornered." Harper tried to steady her breath. "But what if he does something worse? What if he tries to ruin me the way Vivian did?" Cole didn't blink. "That's why I'm stopping him first." Within an hour, the Westbrook legal team arrived at the plaza. They filled the suite's living area with open laptops, thick binders, and a storm of legal terms Harper barely recognized. But the one who caught her attention was a woman named Catherine Royce, sharp-eyed, ruthless, and the kind of attorney who made seasoned CEOs break into cold sweats. Catherine set a folder in front of Harper. "We ran a full audit of the joint accounts Gavin created using your name. Everything he did, every cent he moved, every transaction he hid. You were the legal owner on paper." Harper's stomach twisted. "So they'll think I did it." "Not after this," Catherine said, sliding over another stack of documents, emails, text messages, financial logs. Cole leaned in. "Vivian's PR contractor left a trail. We traced the entire smear campaign back to her team. And the offshore accounts? Gavin forged your digital authorization." Harper's breath caught. "Forged?" Catherine nodded. "We have proof. Enough to clear your name, ruin theirs, and possibly bring criminal charges." A wave of relief mixed with disbelief washed over Harper. All the lies, all the manipulation, now laid bare. Then Catherine added, "There's something else." She opened a final folder, this one heavier, marked confidential. "These photos were taken 2 months before your divorce, Vivian and Gavin, together. At his private retreat in the Hamptons. This wasn't a recent affair. It started long before your pregnancy complications." Harper stared at the images, a glass of wine, beach, sand, Vivienne sitting in Harper's old robe. A robe she thought she'd misplaced. A dull ache spread through her chest. She wasn't shocked anymore, just painfully validated. The betrayal had been deeper, earlier, and colder than she ever imagined. Catherine continued, We can expose all of this immediately, but the timing should be strategic. You can destroy them today. Or, her eyes flicked to Harper. You can destroy them publicly. Harper swallowed. Publicly? Cole's voice was calm, steady. At the Verona Gala, Vivienne's kingdom, Gavin's stage, their moment of victory. Harper met his eyes, pulse steadying with a new kind of resolve. And you want me to be there? Cole nodded. Not just be there, walk in with the truth. Harper closed the folder slowly, the weight of decision settling over her. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready. The night of the Verona Gala glittered brighter than the Manhattan skyline. Limousines stretched across Fifth Avenue, photographers crowded the entrance of the Plaza Hotel, and guests draped in couture glided across the marble lobby like royalty. It was the kind of event Harper once believed she would never belong to. A world too polished, too cruel, too filled with people who would never see a woman like her. Tonight, however, she wasn't the forgotten wife in a hospital gown. She was the Ellington heir, and she was ready. Cole arrived at her suite an hour before the event. When Harper stepped out from behind the dressing screen, his breath visibly stalled. Her gown was a soft champagne silk that caught the light like liquid gold, tailored perfectly to her frame. Her hair, usually pulled back in practical knots, fell in loose waves that framed her face with effortless elegance. A delicate diamond bracelet, once belonging to her grandmother, adorned her wrist. You look, Cole paused, searching for words, his voice dropping. Extraordinary. Harper felt heat rise to her cheeks. Thank you. I'm nervous. That's human, Cole said, extending an arm. But you're not going alone. She took his arm, grounding herself in the steadiness he always offered. As they stepped out of the elevator into the grand hall, heads turned instantly. Conversations paused. Cameras shifted. It wasn't just her beauty, it was her presence. Quiet, poised, unmistakably powerful. Whispers surged through the room. Is that Harper Ellington? She's not supposed to be here. She looks nothing like the tabloids said. Is that Cole Westbrook with her? Harper kept her chin high, heart thudding but steady. Cole guided her with graceful confidence, his hand resting lightly on her back as they moved through the glittering crowd. Then a familiar voice sliced through the murmurs. Well, look who crawled back. Vivienne Clark approached, wearing a red gown sharp enough to cut. Her smile was venom wrapped in velvet. Gavin trailed behind her, sweating, pale, eyes darting desperately between Harper and Cole. Harper met Vivienne's gaze calmly. Good evening. Vivienne's lip curled. You must be lost. This isn't a charity event. Cole stepped forward, voice chilled. She's exactly where she belongs. End quote. Vivienne rolled her eyes. Please. She's a nobody with a new dress. Do you really think anyone here takes her seriously? Harper held Vivienne's gaze, her voice quiet but devastating. They will tonight. Vivienne stiffened. What does that mean? Before Harper could answer, a spotlight snapped on. A microphone crackled. The host stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a last-minute change to tonight's program. We'll begin with an unexpected announcement from Ellington Westbrook Holdings. Vivienne pallid. Gavin swayed. Cole whispered to Harper, It's time. Harper stepped toward the stage, and the room held its breath because they all sensed the destruction about to unfold. The stage lights softened as Harper approached the podium, her gown catching the glow like a rising dawn. The entire gala hushed. Even the chandeliers seemed to hold their breath. Cole stood just below the stage, steadying her with his gaze, silently promising he would catch her if she stumbled. But Harper didn't stumble. Not anymore. She placed her hands on the microphone, her posture steady, her voice calm. Thank you for giving me this moment. Tonight isn't about power or money. Tonight is about truth. A ripple moved through the audience. Vivienne visibly tensed. Gavin's breath hitched. Harper glanced at them briefly, just enough to let them know she saw them. Then she lifted the folder Catherine had prepared for her. For months, my name has been used to hide illegal financial activity. Funds were taken using accounts opened without my consent. Offshore transfers were made under forged authorization, and a smear campaign was launched against me to silence the truth. The room erupted in confused whispers. Harper continued, her voice unwavering. Tonight, I am formally presenting evidence to the federal authorities, as well as to shareholders of Verona Beauty and Mercer Dynamics. Vivienne's face drained of all color. You wouldn't. I already did, Harper replied. The audience gasped. Cameras flashed. Gavin stumbled toward the stage. Harper, please don't do this. You don't know what you're unleashing. Harper looked at him with the calm sadness of someone finally letting go. You unleashed it, not me. It's of Dawn. He climbed the steps shakily, ignoring security's warnings. His voice broke. I lost control. I made mistakes, but you can't destroy my life. Harper, I still care about you. The crowd murmured, some in pity, some in disgust. Harper inhaled slowly. If you cared, you wouldn't have abandoned me in a hospital bed while our children fought to breathe. The words hit him harder than any slap could. Gavin fell to his knees, literally right at her feet, grabbing her hand like a drowning man grasping a rope. Please, I'll fix it. I'll confess. I'll leave Vivian. I'll do anything. Don't let them take everything. Vivienne recoiled. Leave me? Gavin, get up. This is humiliating. But Gavin didn't move. He sobbed openly, shoulders shaking under the bright lights, the entire elite of Manhattan watching him shatter. Harper gently removed her hand from his grasp. You already lost everything, she said softly. Tonight simply reveals it. Security guards approached. Gavin looked around wildly as if searching for one last lifeline. No one offered him one. Vivienne backed away slowly, as if distancing herself from a sinking ship. And then the stage manager approached Harper, whispering nervously, Miss Ellington, the media is already outside. They're asking if you'll give a statement. Harper steadied her breath. Yes, she whispered. It's time the whole city knows the truth. The moment Harper stepped out of the Plaza ballroom, the air outside exploded with camera flashes. Reporters surged forward, microphones rising like a forest of metal stems, each voice fighting to be heard. Miss Ellington, were the allegations true? Did Gavin Mercer forge your signature? Is Vivienne Clark involved in the offshore accounts? Are you taking control of Mercer Dynamics? Cole stayed close, one hand protectively at Harper's back. She felt steady, almost weightless on the marble steps, as though the person she used to be had completely dissolved under the city lights. She raised a hand. The crowd fell silent. Tonight, I submitted every piece of evidence to federal authorities, Harper said, voice clear and confident. I also submitted documents proving a hostile misuse of my identity and an orchestrated public smear campaign. The reporters leaned in. Additionally, Harper continued, Ellington Westbrook Holdings will be calling an emergency meeting at dawn. We possess enough stock to influence leadership positions within Mercer Dynamics. A gasp swept through the crowd. In a corner of the steps, Gavin watched with hollow eyes. His tie was loose, his hair soaked with sweat. Vivienne had vanished the moment the news broke, leaving him to face the consequences alone. Harper didn't look his way. Not once. Inside the SUV, Cole pulled up a live transcript of shareholder reactions. Phones buzzed with messages from executives, board members, investors, everyone demanding Harper's next move. You're not just clearing your name, Cole said. You're reshaping two corporations. Harper exhaled slowly. I don't want revenge for revenge's sake. I just want the truth to matter again. And it does, Cole assured. At dawn, Harper entered the Westbrook Tower boardroom, no hesitation, no trembling. The meeting was swift, decisive, historic. Vivienne Clark was removed from Verona Beauty pending investigation. Gavin Mercer was suspended as CEO of Mercer Dynamics indefinitely. A restructuring committee was formed with Harper as its chair. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Her signature now symbolized authority, not vulnerability. As the session ended, Harper approached the tall windows overlooking Manhattan. The rising sun painted the skyline in gold and peach, reflecting off the glass towers below. This doesn't feel real, she whispered. Cole stepped beside her. It's real, and you earned every part of it. She turned toward him, breath catching. Cole, why have you done all this for me? He held her gaze, his answer steady, honest. Because your grandmother asked me to protect you, but somewhere along the way, his voice softened. I wanted to. Harper's heart fluttered in a way it hadn't in years, warm, hopeful, terrified. Before she could respond, the elevator dinged behind them. Catherine rushed in, pale and breathless. Harper, you need to see this. It's about your babies. Harper's breath faltered, and in that instant, all her power meant nothing because nothing mattered more than her children. Harper ran down the corridor of the NICU, heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Catherine's words echoed in her mind. There's been a change. Every horrible possibility clawed at her. After everything she'd survived, Gavin, Vivienne, the scandal, the humiliation, the idea of losing even one of her babies was unthinkable. She burst into the unit, expecting chaos. Instead, she saw the head nurse smiling gently. "Miss Ellington," the nurse said softly. "They're okay." Harper's legs nearly gave out. What happened?" "Your daughter had a brief oxygen drop," the nurse explained. "But she stabilized quickly. All three are improving faster than we projected. They're strong, Harper." Harper pressed a trembling hand to her mouth as tears filled her eyes, tears of relief, gratitude, hope. She stepped closer to the incubators. Her babies were tiny, but their chests rose and fell with steady determination, as if they too had decided they were done being fragile. Cole appeared behind her. "They're fighters," he whispered. Harper nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Just like their mom," he added gently. She looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't look away. "Thank you for being here. For every step," he swallowed, emotion flickering in his eyes. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." And in that quiet, glowing room, Harper realized something with profound clarity. She had spent years begging for scraps of affection from a man who never loved her, when a better love, steadier, stronger had been walking beside her all along. A week later, Harper and Cole stood in family court for the final hearing. Gavin didn't show. Reports claimed he'd fled the state after federal charges were filed. His assets were frozen. His reputation destroyed. Vivienne, facing her own avalanche of investigations, had vanished from public life entirely. The judge reviewed the papers, then looked at Harper with kindness. "Miss Ellington, full custody is granted. Your ex-husband has forfeited all parental rights." Harper exhaled shakily, a weight lifting from her that she didn't realize she'd been carrying. Outside the courthouse, snowflakes drifted down like confetti. Cole slipped his hand into hers, not asking, just offering. Harper squeezed back. Months later, in a quiet ceremony overlooking the East River, surrounded only by close friends and her healthy triplets, Harper Ellington married Cole Westbrook. Not for power, not for protection, for love, for partnership, for the future she finally deserved. As Harper held her babies close and watched the sun reflect off Manhattan's skyline, she understood something deeply, irrevocably true. Her story hadn't begun in betrayal. It had begun in survival, and it ended in triumph. Because Harper didn't just rise, she soared. So, that's it, my friends. Our story closes here. And if you're still with me at this very moment, it means something in Harper's journey touched your heart, maybe gently, maybe deeply, maybe in a way you didn't expect. And I want to talk to you, not as a narrator, not as a creator, but as someone who understands what it means to be hurt, to rise, and to heal. Harper's story reminds us that no matter how dark a chapter looks, it's never the whole book. People may betray us, disappoint us, or walk away when we need them most, but as Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle is the way. The pain we face doesn't break us, it shapes us. It clears the path for something better, someone better, a life better. Maybe you're carrying something heavy right now. Maybe you're healing quietly in your own way. Just remember, you deserve peace, dignity, and love that stays. If this story gave you a little strength tonight, a little hope, or even just a moment to breathe, do me a small kindness. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. We're building a space for hearts like yours, and I'm grateful you're here.